It's not
You
sports.
It's not sports, but like, you know what?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We're waiting on one more board member, and so we'll be starting the meeting shortly. Thank you for your patience.
You need to answer the whole life. You know, just like my
Good afternoon. The Memphis and Shelby County Board of Adjustment is hereby called to order for its regularly scheduled meeting of November 16th, 2022. My name is Tim Rainey. I'm chairman of the board. Mr. Brett Ragsdale serves as secretary of the board. Mr. Ragsdale, may I get a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Ms. Baker?
Here.
Here.
Mr. Tolles? Here. Ms. Scurlock?
Here.
Vice Chair Saperstown?
Present.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, thank you very much. The Memphis and Shelby County Board of Adjustment is the oldest appointed governmental body in Memphis and Shelby County. We were established in 1925. The board hears appeals from the administration of the zoning ordinance, requests for variances from the zoning ordinance, and other requests articulated by local zoning laws adopted pursuant to the enabling legislation. The 8 members of the board are appointed, 4 by the mayor of Memphis and 4 by the mayor of Shelby County, with confirmation by the Memphis City Council or Shelby County Board of Commissioners. We serve without remuneration. At this time, I'd like to swear in the staff. You may remain seated. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, thank you. May I get a motion to approve the minutes from last month's meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, let's see, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None, the motion passes. Mr. Secretary, can you provide us a secretary's report if there is one this month, and then explain the procedure for today's meeting?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I do not have a secretary's report, so I will just go to the procedures. The procedure for this meeting will be as follows. I will introduce each case as listed on the agenda. Copies of the agenda are found on the front right podium. For each case, the planner with the Division of Planning and Development will give a presentation that will contain site plans, photographs, and maps of the subject property. At the conclusion of the staff presentation, the applicant will present his or her case. After the applicant's presentation, the board will hear first from those speakers in support of the application, then from those speakers in opposition to the application, and then finally, the applicant will have an opportunity to provide rebuttal. All parties who wish to provide testimony to the board will be sworn in by the chair. If a member of the audience wishes to provide testimony in support of or in opposition to a particular case on today's agenda, he or she will need to fill out a speaker's card for the record. Speaker's cards are available at the front podium. Once filled out, speaker's cards can be submitted to any DPD staff planner at the left podium. We do not need speaker's cards from the applicants since their names are already part of the record. After all parties have been heard, the board will close the public hearing, make a motion, and then deliberate on the case. Pursuant to the board's rules of procedure, the time allotted for speakers will be as follows. The applicant has 5 minutes to present his or her case. The applicant may reserve unused time for his or her rebuttal. Those speaking in support of the application have 5 minutes. This 5 minutes is the total time allotted for support testimony, regardless of the number of speakers. Those speaking in opposition of the application have 10 minutes. This 10 minutes is the total time allotted for opposition testimony, regardless of the number of speakers. The applicant has 2 minutes for rebuttal in addition to any unused time from his or her presentation time. These times do not include time for questions from and answers to members of the board. The chair may provide additional time provided both sides are given an equal amount of additional time. If the applicant or any speaker would like to be heard after the conclusion of the public hearing, or if a board member wishes to be heard, additional testimony from any party, a 2/3 vote is required to reopen the public hearing, pursuant to the board's rules of procedure. Please note that once the public hearing is reopened, both the applicant and opposition will be allowed to provide additional testimony and/or rebuttal. All motions made by this board will be in the affirmative. The private acts governing the board require the affirmative vote of at least 5 members to approve an application, regardless of the number of board members present. The board may also vote to hold an application for a period not to exceed 90 days with the consent of the applicant or 30 days without the consent of the applicant. All section numbers that we refer to come from the Memphis and Shelby County Unified Development Code, or the UDC, which was adopted by the Memphis City Council and Shelby County Board of Commissioners in August of 2010 and became effective on January 1st of 2011. I will introduce the entire UDC and make it part of today's record, thus dispensing with the reading of individual sections. The board is vested with the power to act on these cases before us today under the provisions of Chapter 9.22 of the UDC. Mr. Chairman, I submit that all cases have been filed in proper order, all applicants have been notified of this hearing, and all notice requirements have been fulfilled as required by the UDC.
All right, thank you. Could you come here real quick? I'm supposed to be here. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. At this point, the board will establish a consent agenda. Before we do, I want to thank, we're having new appointments made on the board. I want to thank Mr. Jackson for his service to the board. Everything he's done has been a great board member and person, so we appreciate his help on the board. But all this is just changing. So at this point, we're going to establish our consent agenda. To establish the consent agenda, the secretary will call out each eligible case. If any member of the audience, staff, or board member objects to the case being placed on the consent agenda, he or she should do so by a show of hands when the secretary reads that case. Once the consent agenda is established, the board will vote on all cases placed on the consent agenda as a whole and will not hold individual public hearings on each case. Mr. Secretary, which items on our agenda today are to be placed on consent?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Item number 4, BOA 22-140, 4970 Summer Avenue as a 1-month hold. Item number 8, BOA 22-147, 3337 Overton Crossing Street as a 1-month hold. Item number 9, BOA 22-148, 409 Air Street. Item number 11, no, we actually are going to hear that one. Item number 12, BOA 22-151, 1546 Robin Hood Lane as a 1-month hold. Item number 13, BOA 22-152, 4055 Poplar Avenue. Item number 15, BOA 22-154, 2405 Elvis Presley Boulevard. Item number 16, BOA 22-155, 2166 Central Avenue. And item number 17, BOA 22-156, 5268 Airways Boulevard as a 1-month hold.
Mr. Ragsdale, may I ask a question, please? If these get approved on consent, then that means that the conditions attached to the staff report will be in effect and will be enforced. Well, you could expect that. Okay. All right, that's my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Baker. So if someone could give us a motion to approve the consent agenda, which consists of case number 4 as a hold, 8 as a hold, 9 as approval with conditions, 12 as a hold, 13, 15, 16 as approval with conditions, and 17 as a hold.
So move.
Second.
All right, before we vote, I'm going to remind the board that by voting on the consent agenda, he or she affirms that he or she has read the staff report and is full agreement with the conditions. Mr. Secretary, may I get a roll call, please?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Ms. Sherlock, yes. Thank you. Mr. Claiborne?
Yes.
Ms. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Towns?
Yes, I find that the standards of the UDC of 9.22.6 are being met and will not be unduly detrimental to the properties in the vicinity.
And Mr. Tolles?
Yes.
And Chair Rainey?
Yes.
Carries.
All right, all items of the consent agenda has either been approved or held as requested. Mr. Secretary, will you call our first case that we're going to hear today?
Yes, sir. It's item number 2, BOA 22-129, 2485 Princeton Avenue.
Okay, is the applicant present? Good to see you again. And then is there any opposition present today? I don't think so. Okay, Mr. Davis, could you give us an update or just briefly tell us about this? I know we heard it last week. You can have a seat on the front row.
Absolutely. Brett Davis, Division of Planning and Development. I presented this case last month, so I won't present it again. The board, at the request of the applicant, held this case for a month with the idea that maybe a redesign would be submitted. I haven't heard anything from the applicant until today. A revised site plan was submitted, which we see here. Largely the same, and the elevations have not changed. So it's the same plan that had previously been purchased. And that is my update.
Okay. Any questions of staff before we move to the applicant? All right, if the applicant will come forward and give your name and address for the record.
Martin Perry, 5382 Seattle Road, Memphis, Tennessee, 38119.
Okay, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, you want to update us on anything has anything changed since last month?
Well, I agreed to your conditions. You wanted the garage to look a little bit different to kind of show that it not technically a garage or had a glass on the front. I agreed to that. And the setbacks, I agreed to that. So I sent them a new site plan today.
Okay. Are there any questions of Mr. Perry? Looking through real quick. So the garage door is pushed back from the front, right? I'm just going through the conditions to make sure.
It was to change the look of the garage. The gentleman that just left, John Jackson, requested that it doesn't look like a garage. So I'm going to put that garage on the house where it doesn't look like it has glass, where it's not going to be glass, rather.
I think the staff conditions in the report are not met by these elevations. I mean,
The elevations don't show that.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question of
Yes,
staff,
ma'am.
if that's okay. Can this residence be constructed to rely upon street parking?
yes, on-street parking is allowed along the street in front of this house.
And that would satisfy the requirement of parking? Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay, that was my question.
I did have a question of staff. You did say the new elevation still hasn't met the conditions. Is that confirmed?
Yeah, this is the same elevation that we saw last month. So our conditions they would require changes to the site plan and bigger changes to the elevations than just the material of the garage. For example, condition 2 requires the garage be at least 3 feet behind the front of the house. So that would require a bigger change to the plans.
Okay.
I agreed to, I told you last month that I agreed to changing I think it was the foundation you guys wanted. I agreed to that. It was nothing that I didn't disagree with. I just didn't want to change my design. There's really no reason to change the design of the house. It meets code.
Okay, so you're saying that you can move the house forward, so it's no more than 30 feet from the street.
That's the new site plan I
Yeah.
submitted.
And did you get a new site plan that shows it, Brett?
Yeah, so
Mr. Davis?
remember the setback requirement under the contextual infill standards would require the front of the house to be within the range of setbacks of 2 lots to either side, which is around 18 to 20 feet, not including the front porch, which is not on these plans, but is required also under the contextual infill standards. This new site plan has the house set back 25 feet, so it's still not meeting the contextual infill standards. It is closer than the site plan we had last month.
Okay. And then you've moved the front porch out a little bit so that, and it was just, okay.
I'm definitely going to be in line with both of the houses that's
Right.
on the opposite side.
Right. Okay. Any other questions or comments by the board?
Are we in discussion?
We are not in discussion.
Okay.
And so, when we get the discussion, we'll discuss it. But what Mr. Perry, what we're discussing is just to give you the idea on the process, just to make sure we're on the same page. They recommended rejection and said, but if you don't reject, at least do these things. So we don't have to do those things and say, oh, you've done that, yeah, you're good. That's what we're going to discuss. Just so you know. I just want you to be clear about what we're talking about and stuff like that. Is there any opposition to this case? Seeing none, with your permission, we'll close the hearing and move to discussion. Okay. So can we get a motion to approve BOA 22-129 as conditioned by staff?
So moved.
Second.
All right, being moved and seconded. Is there any, Ms. Baker, do you have some discussion?
Yes, I
Yeah.
did. Thank you. I feel like the staff report is right on point on this case. I don't see any gain, as the report says, from eliminating a needed parking space on the street to accommodate a front-facing garage and a parking space in front of that. The best outcome, it seems to me, is for you and the owner of the 25-foot wide lot next door to work together on sharing a driveway to the rear yard. That way, you could both construct houses on your lots that would meet all the contextual infill standards.
We can't use the alley. It's not usable.
Excuse
You can't
me?
use the alley. You can't use the alley.
No, she's talking about the actual
I'm
lot
talking
to the-
about
like going
sha-
between the two houses.
Sharing a drive
lots.
with those two lots. The other way you could do it is just build a narrow house
My house is 15 feet wide.
with a driveway.
It has a driveway.
But the shared drive would be the best. And of course, that, I happen to know the person that owns the property next door. Probably most people in this room do, because they've been in front of us. And I know they're probably going to be coming forward wanting to develop their lot. And so if the two of you could work together and could have a shared drive and both could meet the requirements, you know, it would work out best for everybody, I think.
But I do have a driveway. There's a driveway, there's a garage for a parking spot, and the street is 3 parking spots. It's room for 3 parking spots.
Well, what I'm saying is, if you shared a drive with the property next door, you could get to the rear yard and have adequate parking for both lots. And shared parking is not all that unusual in Midtown. I mean, it's there's a lot of it. So that would be the best solution to this property, in my opinion. And the other way you could do it is just build the house and park on the street. I mean, you've got options, is what I'm saying. Those are my comments, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any other comments?
My, I guess, issue that wasn't addressed was the not requiring a front porch, whereas the rest of the neighborhood, all of them have some type of porch, and it's the interaction. Even if that porch is on a second story, or like a balcony, or something to somehow reflect the neighborhood that you're intending to integrate into. And I didn't see the porch or interaction with the neighborhood. While I definitely appreciate development in this neighborhood, reflecting or building a part of the community is also an important feature, in my opinion.
I think I agree with you, Portia, on just the front porch issue, whether it's up high or low. I think, I like the design personally. I think it's, that's just my opinion, I know. But I think I would prefer to see some type of porch, like design to help me marry it with. I'm not opposed to the newness. I mean, I know a lot of Midtown, as we greatly take it, is turning to a different type of design. But to just kind of help make that transition, I think a porch, even preferably upper, would help me stomach that.
Yeah, the plan is super popular. I had multiple offers when I listed this one, and have a contract on Angeles. It's multiple offers on that one as well, so it's an extremely popular plan. Nice house.
Any other comments? Okay, with that, I assume you're ready to vote. Mr. Ragsdale, will you give us a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Ms. Scurlock?
Oh, no.
Mr. Tolles?
No.
Ms. Baker?
No.
Mr. Claybrook?
No.
Vice Chair Savage Towns?
No, I find that the standards of 9.22.6 of the UDC are not being met and will be unduly detrimental to the properties in the vicinity.
Chair Rainey?
All right, no. All right, the motion fails. Mr. Ragsdale, will you call the next case, please?
Item number 3, BOA 22-13152, Angeles.
All right, see the applicant, is there any opposition here this week for this case? All right, yeah, you can have a seat right there. Yeah, you can have a seat right there, thank you. All right, Mr. Skinner, will you bring us up to speed of any changes or just give us an overview of this one as well?
Yes, Lucas Skinner, Division of Planning and Development. Similar to last month, we were hoping to hear both of these 52 Angeles cases together, so we can go ahead and hear 131 and 144.
Okay.
But I'll kind of run through both really quick. So we did receive elevations for 131, which if you remember, this is one that has the balcony on the second story. So it's, predominantly hardy siding, lap siding with some stucco panels thrown in occasionally, box columns shown on the front and sides for the porch and in the rear. So that's that elevation, and then again, very similar elevation to the last case for 144. So we haven't really gotten any other new information. I did some really quick searching and found some home plans that are the same width, between 14 and 16 feet, that potentially could be more of a craftsman style with an actual wide front porch that could potentially accommodate a drive. So just wanted to throw that in there. But again, we're recommending rejection. And if approved, same two conditions from last month. We added in a third condition, number 3, to just ensure, similar to Mr. Davis said, just to ensure that the front setback range is met. It seems to be right at about 13 feet is where the remaining homes are. The site plans seem to reflect that, but we just want to ensure that range would be met. But with that, I'm available for any questions.
Okay, are there any questions for staff?
Yes, I have a question for staff.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Baker.
How long has this property been assembled into a 50-foot lot?
It's basically been 50 feet in its entire, since it was platted, the Sanborn maps reflected as 15 feet, back to like 1907, I believe.
Thank you.
And this is where, they were just, you kind of bought what you were going to use. We talked about that last month. It was 15 feet increments, and nobody really bought 15 feet. They might buy 30, they might buy 75.
Right, and there are some existing like shotgun, homes on
Sure.
very small lots still existing as well.
Sure,
Yes.
okay. All right, any other questions of staff? All right, if the applicant will come forward and give your name and address for the record for us.
Jason McNear, 3368 Johnson Street, 38128 Memphis, Tennessee.
All right, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, go ahead. Would you like to add anything?
When I showed the plans, the elevation last time, you guys loved it, told me to submit it. I submitted it with the new setback, and I'm here. And also, the lady never opposed it. We have a petition for the other people in the neighborhood as well that's all for it. I don't have it in my email. I think she emailed it directly to you guys.
Did you ever see anything like that?
I've never received anything.
Okay. mean, he's under oath, so I'm not disputing that. You know what I mean? So I'm just going through these conditions. So how far back is the front of the house from the street now with the new site plan? I just want to make sure I'm on.
13.
13 feet, okay. And then, how deep is your porch? You have that upper porch, you know how deep it is?
It's 4 or 5 feet.
Okay.
Also, my elevation showed a parking pad in front of the garage as well, where you can fit a car and not intrude the sidewalk.
Porch is 4 feet, found it.
4 feet, yep.
Yeah. You know, it's very similar to our last case, but it's a different design that kind of activates to the street differently, you know, for that whole contextual infill. That's what's so funky about. Contextual infill is a little funky. I mean, it just is. You know, it's kind of like, how do you think it fits with the neighborhood? And I know there's different things you look at, but it's not like it's just, okay, we need 2 of this or something like that. But this, you know, I'm just thinking about this one compared to the last one. It just seems to.
Last month, y'all said it fit well.
Yeah. Any other questions of the applicant?
I don't have a question, but I have comment and discussion.
Okay. All right, is there anybody here in opposition to this case? Okay, so you still have time if you want to talk, but with your permission, we'll go to discussion. Is that?
I mean, like I said already, I purchased the lot based on the houses that was on the street already. I don't know if y'all familiar. Can I show you 72 Angeles?
We looked at some of those last week, yeah.
Y'all looked at 72?
Have it.
Please show it to them.
It's this.
I have better pictures.
Oh, that's the one that they approved.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
It was mentioned in the staff report?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Can we get a motion to approve BOA 2022-131 as conditioned by staff?
So move.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
Well,
Yeah.
comment more so.
Yes.
Now
Yes, ma'am.
this, and I guess this kind of goes in line with what me and Ms. Gerlach were discussing early on with the porch, whether high or low, there is a porch there. There is given that distinctive look to me of merging the modern and the look of the neighborhood. So, you know, I'm a little bit more on board with this one than I was with the other application because of that, because I do see more of a union with the modern and then with keeping with the neighborhood on this one. That's just my personal opinion. I think that porch and the current elevations kind of help marry that for me. That's just my opinion on that.
Right. Other comments?
I have a comment. Yes, I agree. Wasn't this the street where there were 3 different houses that looked totally different? I should have asked him earlier, because I don't know if he was here I didn't want to put him with someone else's case.
Yeah, he was here for that.
He was here
Yes.
did y'all ever get to talk, I guess, with all 3 builders?
No, I don't.
I can add a little bit of insight. So
Okay.
the 2022-145 case, the third case, that was the flat roof, 2-story. They have redesigned in a way that they have no front garage and there are no setback encroachments. They don't need a variance. And they will have a drive that goes to the back with rear parking. So we withdrew them because they redesigned in a way that they don't need any variances.
Gotcha. Okay. So, yes, and I do like the way that this design has married contextually to transition and say, hey, we want to be a part of the neighborhood, not tear the neighborhood down. So thank you for that.
Any other comments? Ms. Baker?
Mr. Chairman, Yes. On this one as well, to me, it looks like the staff called it correctly. It's a 50-foot lot that has that opportunity to get a driveway back to the rear. And so I have a hard time seeing a practical difficulty that prevents the development of this site, when it can be developed. And to me, it seems like, we're going to be getting more of these going forward because, and this is a good thing, cities development is coming back into the city. It's a good thing. But it means we're going to be getting more and more requests to develop these non-conforming lots. And it just seems to me like we should have some policies that we follow rather than just, every time we get one, we make a decision on that one. Not saying we would never deviate, we would, but at least we'd be doing it with a record in mind of what we've done in the past. And so I just see this one, I don't see it differently from the ones that we looked at just previously. And I think that they can develop it in conformance with the regulations. So I don't think the practical difficulty applies. And I just think that if we don't approve it, it will get developed according to the requirements. And so that's what I'd like us to do is follow the recommendation of the staff and then let it develop in the right way.
Well, see, if the recommendations was done
Hold on,
before
we're actually
purchase-
in discussion. So yeah,
okay,
you're,
okay.
yeah,
My bad.
sorry. Yeah, it's okay. Other thoughts? I think I know what his argument that he was gonna make, which, two different people, it was a 50-foot lot that got sold separately to two different people, but in your argument, well, get with your neighbor and do a shared drive like we have all over Midtown and in places in High Point and stuff like that, and you get to the back. Even on wider lots, people choose to do that just to minimize the concrete in the yard. That would be, so I'm arguing for him and you at the same time. But I think that's what, yeah. Or I'm at least giving what I think those arguments are. I'm still torn.
You're right.
I do like the way this one looks with that porch compared to the last one. All right, I'm still not sure. Any other thoughts of the board or discussion?
I'm torn as well because I see both sides. I mean, this question will come up a lot more. And another neighbor on the street has redesigned to where they don't even need the variance anymore. So it can and has been done by other neighbors. Of course, I don't know what that one looks like. I mean, I don't know, but we're not designers. But I do feel the effort has been made. I'm torn as well. I'm very familiar with that property. That's over there behind the Home Depot.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a challenging area. There's a lot going on.
A lot.
Industrial, business, traffic, residential. There's a lot going on in that area that doesn't necessarily address the strict variance line. So.
Mr. Skinner, if we were to vote, before we vote for this, if we were voting for this site plan, we would need to remove condition 2, wouldn't we? That's requiring, 6-foot porch, no street-facing garage. That really would need to go away, I think, right?
Right, if you would like this elevation
This-
as it
yeah.
stands, correct.
I think if we're going to vote on this, we need to have the friendly amendment to our motion to remove that, just because it wouldn't make any sense to vote with that still in here. If I think, did you move on that? And Portia second, I think?
Yes,
Vice versa, or both, y'all are both okay with
I'll
that?
move to add the amendment.
And Mr.
And I
Chairman, I was
second.
going to add, I mean, if we're recommending rejection, but with those conditions, so you could vote to keep those conditions, and then it would have to be developed to, that was our intention anyway.
Yeah.
But if you want to vote to remove it, then.
We would need, if we were going to approve basically that look, we have to remove it.
Correct.
If we wanted just to approve something different than that, then we could leave it in.
Yes.
But it'd be back to square one or square something to get rid of the garage.
Right, we just
Do the
require-
18 inches.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Are y'all are okay with amending your motion though?
We're okay with amending the motion to remove, yes.
And if that fails, we can always vote again on a different motion if y'all would like to.
Mr. Chair, just
Mr.
a point of
Tolles.
clarification. I think I understand what we've got here, but you're saying if we vote positive, the garage the street facing garage will not be there. Is that correct?
Well, we just changed the motion.
Okay.
So if we voted in the positive now, we would be approving basically what you see there with a street-facing garage.
Okay,
Now, if that motion fails, I think we could make another motion
okay,
to
okay.
that back in.
All right, I just wanted to be clear.
Yeah,
because
but
I
you
thought
would be
you were taking
voting
that.
for what you see
Okay, no,
on the
I
screen.
really have a problem with the street facing garage, so that's why I wanted
Did you
to
say
make sure.
you did or didn't?
I do have a problem.
Okay.
with it, Yeah,
Yeah, understood.
okay.
So let's go ahead and vote.
Do you want to vote on the amendment only? That way it won't be a rejection.
Yeah, we can do that. So let's then procedurally, we can just change our motion to supersede that. So can we how about we get a motion to delete? Do we need to delete that?
Condition 2.
Okay, so I'd like somebody to make a motion to delete condition 2. That's over, so we got to move, and we do have a second?
Second,
So by voting yes on this, you're saying yes to a street-facing garage. By voting no, you're saying no to a street-facing garage. Okay? Just to be clear, okay. Mr. Ragsdale, will you give us a roll call?
Sir. Mr. Claybrook?
Yes.
Ms. Baker?
No.
Mr. Tolles?
No.
Ms. Scurlock?
Yes.
Vice Chair Savage Towns?
yes, I find that the standards of 9.22.6 of the UDC are being met. It will not be unduly detrimental to the properties in the vicinity.
And Chair Rainey?
Yes, but the motion still fails, correct? So all we've done is we've kept number 2 in there. So we can vote on the conditions now by staff, and it means a change of the site plan to do that, but you at least have some of these things taken care of if we vote that way. And you can always file another variance for something else. But as far as the street face, it would not allow a street-facing garage on this motion.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm confused.
Yeah. All we've done now is we voted not to allow a change in our original motion, which included all the conditions.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm confused.
Here's what
Hey, go ahead.
I worry about on this, and maybe I shouldn't be, but I'm going to ask you just, maybe you can explain it to me.
Maybe not. We'll try.
Maybe not. So if we approve this, even though we say no street-facing garage, what we've basically done is we've separated out this lot so that that lot that's next door to it then, by virtue of separating this out, we've created that one. And we don't have any particular design that some people on the board like for that. And so that's my concern, that by doing this, we're setting that other lot up maybe for something that we don't like, And not that we don't like, but doesn't follow the UDC and doesn't follow policies for redeveloping the city.
Okay.
That's my concern.
Right. Any other comments?
I have one. Okay.
I'm real confused.
We need 5 votes to reopen the hearing if we want to hear from the applicant. Do we have 5 people that want to go back to the applicant? Not seeing it, so. Sorry.
A lawyer or something? Who gonna hear my side?
Let's see. Okay, so we're now going to vote, unless there's other discussion, on the motion whether to approve these conditions with the staff report. So a vote no is just everything's rejected. A vote yes, we're allowing this. Now, question for you, Mr. Secretary. So any deviation from the site plan would be, so I mean, he'd just have to submit a new, number one, he's got to submit a new site plan. That's fine to be there because we know it's going to have to deviate. And then, okay. All right, if you'll give us a roll call, please.
All right. Mr. Claybrook?
So just to be clear, you're voting to, at this point, you would just be voting yes, that he can develop using the conditions as shown up there. You know, not telling me how to vote. Mary would say, this doesn't give me enough information, and it maybe sticks us in a place where we don't want to be with the other lot to do this.
I would vote no.
You would vote no, yeah.
But that wouldn't give him the ability to develop the front-facing garage, would it?
No, he would not. He would basically could have a 25-foot lot. And then has to be 18 inches above elevation. He's got to have a 6-foot porch, can't have a street-facing garage, and then he has to locate it within the range of setbacks that are already there.
Okay, but if I understand the non-conforming regulations, he doesn't even have a 25-foot lot. He's got one in a way, but not really, not one that's developable. It's been assembled since 1907. And the UDC says if it's been assembled since 1989, it's not a good lot. And so we're essentially creating lots here with our action. And that's what troubles me about this. I don't think we should. It's one 50-foot lot, and he can build a duplex all day long with a driveway to the backyard. And if we had both lots in front of us right now, then I might feel a little less troubled about it because we'd know what was going to happen on the other lot.
Well, I mean, that's the next case. You could table. Mr. So that I understand, I mean, the variance is for a 25-foot lot. I mean, that is the purpose of the variance. Yeah, okay.
So if this gets rejected,
He doesn't have a buildable lot.
Right.
okay.
Who gonna give me my money back?
I don't mind. I want both of these lots to be
I don't
developed,
understand.
okay? I
I
love
purchased
the illustrations that the staff showed.
It's the public
They
hearing
were
is closed.
perfect, really. But as long as I am not setting up a situation where next we're going to be dealing with that next lot, and
I'll say this by default, not by default, but yeah, we would essentially help in creating another 25-foot lot.
that we hadn't agreed on a plan for.
But
that we
would
don't
have
know.
to fit all the other things. I mean, it would actually still need a variance because it doesn't have one yet to be 25 feet and be buildable. But then they still would have
But we
whatever.
could still vote in a way that would prevent a front-facing garage.
Yeah, that would be,
and
that's a separate variance
that
than
they
the
would have to
25 feet. Yes, ma'am.
adhere to the contextual infill standards.
That's all it
Yes,
is.
and if I may, Mr. Chairman, that's what condition number
That's
two
number
actually
two is.
does, is it does not allow a street-facing garage and requires a front porch. So a vote to approve with those conditions would in fact enforce it to meet the contextual infill standards.
So if I wanted both of those lots to develop, but I wanted them to develop with homes that are correct with respect to the ordinance and so on, I would vote yes on this? Okay, I'm sorry.
No, that's it. Well, it's a confusing one.
It's confusing.
But yeah, we're basically requiring everything else. We're just allowing,
Okay.
all we're really allowing is the width.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So are we ready to vote? Mr. Rags, will we give us a roll call, please?
Mr. Claybrook?
Yes.
Ms. Baker?
Yes.
Bowles?
Yes.
Ms. Scurlock,
Yes.
Vice Chair Savage Towns,
That the standards of the UDC of 9.22.6 are being met and will not be unduly detrimental to the properties in the vicinity.
and Chair Rainey.
Yes. All right, so this has been approved as conditioned by staff. Mr. Rags, will you call our next case for us?
Yes, sir. It is item number 5. BOA 22-14452 Angela Street.
All right, I see Mr. Harry is back. If you could bring us up to speed on this one, if you could, Mr. Skinner.
Lucas Skinner again, Division Planning and Development. So again, very same thing that we just discussed. The elevations are obviously just different. They look to be exactly the same elevations from Mr. Davis's case on Princeton. If that gives you any idea of what you are looking at elevation-wise. We have the same recommendation, same conditions if approved. So,
Okay.
yeah, with that.
So basically, as conditioned by staff, we would be approving the width is basically what we're approving, and everything else is just like it was.
Correct.
Okay. All right, if the applicant will come forward, and you've already talked to us before, do you have anything to say on this case, or?
I mean, man, this house is already sold. I've been trying to build this house now for 3 months. I built the other house on the street that has the front-facing garage. That house was approved. There's multiple houses on the street with front-facing garages. Let's see. It's not in the historical district. It's probably one of the worst streets in Midtown, and we're just trying to clean the street up. That's pretty much it. I'm just trying to get a house built here. That's
Right.
it.
Yeah.
I've already built a house with a garage. There's multiple houses on the street with garages. There's houses without porches. There's no house on the street that has a driveway that runs to the back of it. So having that, I mean, really don't know, guys. Just want to build a house.
Yeah, no, I mean, I understand your plight. The issue we're faced with is always like, and I'm not even saying this is bad development. We're always stuck between, the code gives us one thing to do, and the variance process is a safety valve for that. And we're always trying to weigh, what what the code says we're supposed to do versus what, the word injury isn't great, but what is supposed to be and what is going on in the neighborhood. And, it's just not an easy choice for us to do, but that's what we have to do sometimes. And so I think what a majority of the board is feeling that, there are some garages, but most of the neighborhood is front porches and stuff like that, and that's what they're trying to keep, because that's what the code tells us to
The
do.
house is way more modern than mine. The one next to it, right directly next door to it, is way more modern. And that one just got approved.
Which one?
38 Angeles. It just got approved. It's way more modern than this house. It
Right,
just don't have
they
a
didn't
garage anymore.
need a variance. The fact that they were able to, we're not necessarily in charge of all design, but when you need a variance, it comes before us and everything gets opened up.
But so at this point, I'm trying to find out, what do I need a variance for? I'm 13 feet. The site plan shows that I'm in line with the houses next door. What am I needing a variance for?
The width.
It's houses on the street. The lots are 25 feet wide. I've built houses all throughout Midtown on 25-foot wide lots.
That one wasn't divided.
But this one wasn't. The other process is to get do a one-lot subdivision, right? Subdivide it, then you somewhat it's a different process, but you get a different result because you're not having to get us to weigh in on what we think is allowed when you offer a variance. Typically, when you have a variance, it wants to know, is what we're asking for absolutely needed? And what the board has argued today is, there's options, and it's not exactly that. You could do a shared driveway. There's other things that can be done to keep from having to do, go all in and do that.
as a homeowner, people hate shared driveways. People hate that. You know how difficult it is to sell a house with a shared driveway? People hate those.
I don't have a shared driveway. I do plenty of closings with shared driveways, and that typically has not been, but it's not been discussed. I don't know if that keeps you from buying a house. I know a lot of Midtown, in Central Gardens has them, but I hear you. We only have so much power to do stuff up here. And so when we do it, we have to do it in accordance with the code says, and I think that's where we're stuck on the contextual infill.
So is it okay, could the house be approved with the shared driveway? I'm sure Jason put his driveway next to mine.
So here's what's being approved. Like, we could approve it just like this. It would be approved. So what this approves is a 25-foot lot. So you can build the house. It does need to have a porch. You don't have to have a driveway, but if you want a driveway, it would probably have to be a shared driveway, just because of your spacing. Like, you don't have to have any parking on site, correct, Mr. Secretary?
They would need one, and we could add that as a variance to do on street. If you didn't have the drive, then that would give you the curb space. So
they can have a drive, they just can't have a garage. So if you can have a driveway.
That's actually a lot of the homes on the street have a driveway. They don't have a garage. They have a drive that goes past the front of the house.
Yeah.
So.
Which addresses though?
All of them. They're like a lot of them have a driveway.
Man, I'm not trying to argue with you, but I'm on that street every day, and I can't remember a house that got a driveway passing the house.
Past the house?
I'm out there every day.
Yeah, and you're not saying they go past the house, right?
Some of them do. Some of them do stop, but the code says that your driveway has to go past the front of your front facade of your home.
So that you're not parking just always in the front yard.
We don't want front yard parking.
So let me ask you this. Would you guys approve for me to encroach into my side setback that way that I can put a driveway alongside of the house? If I can encroach into the side setback? Because I got 5 feet.
That is, I can't speak for the board, but that is something that gets approved sometimes. Side setbacks moving over in order to place the driveway and stuff.
And then we can both have our driveways meet each other, and it's still pretty much a shared driveway look, and it can run alongside of the house.
Yeah, but if you're gonna, how wide do you think that would be?
We could probably do, I think maybe about 11 feet.
Yeah, so, but you'd be going to park, to be able to park in the back, correct?
Yeah, it could, but I would probably need to encroach into my side setback by, if I did, 10.
He can actually go down to a 3-foot setback without a variance, right?
Okay.
As it currently stands, so you can reduce that 5 foot to 3.
Sorry, I'm looking at I'm looking at the plan real quick.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question of the staff?
Yes, ma'am.
What is the side setback on a 25-foot lot? Is it 2.5 feet? 3.
You just said 3.
Well, I guess it would just depend on the zoning district and the use that's done on the lot. Roughly be somewhere around 2.5 or 3.
I was thinking it was 2.5 feet.
Well, it just sort of depends. We don't have not many of the residential districts call for 25-foot width lot, so that we don't really have that. But in this zoning district, as it stands for conforming lot, they would need 5 feet. For non-conforming tracts of record, I believe that you can go down to no less than 3 feet. But that's about as small as, we can allow it.
I don't see a full in here like overhead site plan. What do you have what's your setbacks right now? Are they 5?
13 and 5. So 13 on the front and 5 on each side.
Okay. So you move down to 3, that gives you 7. Mm-hmm. Gives your neighbor 7.
Yeah.
So then you have.
And then if he do a shared driveway, it's pretty much like 14 right there.
Yeah.
We both can have. It look weird, but it'll work.
I see it a lot.
Yeah.
It's one of the things like, hey, it's concrete, and concrete's not cheap.
Right.
I get it. I think that a lot of people would probably rather have it in the back if they could. Like a lot, I know you said people don't like shared driveways, but I think a lot of people do like the security of parking in the back when security's an issue and not having people right by their cars. Y'all could even, we're always stuck in the position up here, and I don't like to spend people's money, but we're just always trying to weigh from what we're allowed to. You could gate it, you can do all sorts of stuff that makes it more secure and a better house. But I know you've already tried to sell it. I mean, you sold it, and
we're about to lose a contract if I can't get this thing going.
Okay, I see up there now.
Yeah, sorry. We did receive, this is the site plan over here.
Okay, yeah.
As it currently stands, but yes, it
Sure.
could be reduced down
Scooted over
to
and-
3.
How long is that house? Front to back right now, you know?
I had to guess, I think probably about 60-something feet. I can't remember.
I can't read these. 'Cause I'm looking to see if you'd be able to move how close can he get to the street in the front?
Well, so 13 is the, per contextual infill. That's the line where the rest of the homes are.
But can you just go around and it's too hard to read those dimensions up there. Can you go around and read them?
Yeah,
For us?
right on this image on the right. Is that what you're?
Okay.
Well, yeah, so it's showing, it's, 25-foot width lot. So drive showing 13 feet to what would sort of be the door. This is like the door to the front of that little porch. So 5 feet on each side. And then this case had the rear setback encroachment. So it's 13 and a half feet back here. And this is the little porch that's extending off the back.
Mr. Chairman, I think you may have been looking at if there was space in the rear, but if the garage was not on the front, then.
Is there room to park back there?
And he
Yeah, if you remove that, the garage,
he could push it up more, right?
Yeah.
Right, and so the third case, the other lot, that's what they did. They took out the garage component and they combined everything, pushed everything up to 13 feet, and then created 2 side-by-side parking stalls in the rear with the drive that goes around to the back.
Yeah.
And they had actually parking we actually saw close to 4 cars that they could probably fit in the back.
Because the front of this house is mostly garage and foyer. It's just a hallway right beside the garage. It's
Right.
it's like it's the living room right there that we're
Right.
losing.
So in other words, he could have a 3-foot side yard and an 8-foot drive, and he'd have a 14-foot wide building. Is that correct? And
Yeah,
that would work.
25, yes.
And I believe the illustrations that you showed were probably about 14 feet wide.
Yes, yeah.
I know that because I looked the same ones up on the internet. I was surprised to
Yeah.
see.
Yes, your math does check. That would be 25, yes.
Yeah, so that would work.
Any other questions of the applicant? Okay. You have anything you want to say before we vote? All right. And then, is there any opposition? Just making sure, okay.
And the neighborhood actually support this. They support it. I thought they had the petition sent over to you guys. I spoke with Janetta Webb earlier this week. I also spoke with another person in the neighborhood, Ralph. I can't remember his last name, but everybody behind it, they want the 2 houses there. It's helping their street.
Right. Okay. All right, is there a motion to approve BOA 2022-144 as conditioned by staff?
So moved.
Second. All right, is there any discussion? I've already talked. All right, I assume you're ready to vote, so if you will give us a roll call, please, Mr. Ragsdale.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, yes,
So
ma'am.
it's the same,
Same conditions we had on the last one.
we vote yes, then he gets to build something, but he doesn't get a front-facing garage. And he has to meet the contextual infill. Okay, just making sure.
All right. Mr. Locke?
Yes.
Mr. Claybrook?
Yes.
Ms. Baker?
Yes.
Yes.
Vice Chair Savage Towns?
Yes, I find that the standards of the UDC of 9.22.6 will be met and will not be unduly detrimental to the properties in the vicinity.
And Chair Rainey.
Yes. All right, so it's been approved for the 25-foot width.
Actually,
So hopefully you and at least we know where the other lot owner is. He's right here, so. Thank you very much. Mr. Ragsdale, will you call the next case for us?
Item number 10, BOA 22-149, 1998 Cowden Avenue.
All right, is the applicant present here? Is Ms. Heron here today? Mr. Thomas, have you heard from her?
I think it's her, uncle or her son or something. That's the actual contractor.
Okay.
I spoke to him on the phone 5 times. I was under the assumption you knew he had to be here, but apparently not.
Okay. Why don't we hold just briefly, if you want to maybe try and call her, and we'll just move on to the next case and come back. I know we typically don't like to hear a case when somebody's not here, but maybe something happened. So if you'll call the next case, Mr. Ragsdale, we'll just kind of table that one for a minute.
All right. Item number 11, BOA 22-150, 2105 Portland Place.
Okay, applicant's present. And then is there opposition to this case today? Okay. Mr. Skinner, will you bring us up to speed on this one?
Yes. Again, Lucas Skinner with Division of Planning and Development. So we have heard this before. My wonderful colleague, Margot Payne, had this case before myself. So you will most likely remember this, but this is for an accessory dwelling unit at 2105 Cortland. So this is across the street, essentially from Slider Inn, just west of Cooper. The principal structure faces Cortland, but this has the double frontage with the backside along Peabody. Again, the elevations, so it's 2 stories, predominantly metal siding, metal roof. And we have the same recommendation, approval with 4 conditions. I do believe the applicant would like to keep the elevations as they are, which would not necessarily be with the conditions, and I will definitely let them speak to that. But yeah, with that, we are recommending approval with 4 conditions. So I'm available for any questions.
All right. Very good. Mr. Walker? You come give your name and address for the record for us. We'll swear you in.
Todd Walker with Archimania at 663 South Cooper.
Okay, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, go ahead and talk to us today.
Yeah, well, I think that the last time we were here, I believe that we sort of agreed to meet all the conditions. We had 5 of you voters here, and at least I know there was 1 holdout relative to the material. I mean, and so that's what I think we got it down to, the material. I'll just sort of, for those that weren't here, this part of the street is a very mixed part of the street. I mean, we have a street on Peabody that backs up, the houses at Cortland back up, and to what would be a primary street on Peabody as you go further west. So really, it's only this block. And, I think, even in the recommendation here that came from staff, I think it says that it's consistent with Memphis 3.0. It notes overall compatibility and consistency in the analysis summary. It says it is compatible with the future land use description, intent, form, and location characteristics, et cetera. I know you guys can all read that, but we've been on the ballot for a while now. We don't have any neighborhood opposition. I've talked to a few neighbors. They're sort of in support of this. It's hard to get somebody to come down here and unless they're opposing something. So we see this as an opportunity to really make the rest of Peabody feel more like a primary street. And I believe that we have other neighbors that will follow this idea. So the gentleman that's doing this is a FedEx pilot. He's not here that much. So his brother also lives on occasion with him. So, you know, the idea is they'll have a back house and a front house. The way we're looking at it, there's sort of two front houses, one that fronts Cortland, one that fronts Peabody. So again, I don't want to put words in your mouths. I mean, but I think what we got down to last time was the metal. He wants to keep the metal. We believe that it's compatible with the mixed diversity in that area. And so we're not trying to make something look like a house that's actually on Cortland or in Central Gardens, et cetera, et cetera. We're just trying to do something that we think is relevant for that street and this time. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any questions for the applicant? Seeing none. Again, I'm going to ask if there's any opposition. Thank you. Okay, so I assume we want to discuss, is there somebody give me a motion to approve BOA 2022-150 as conditioned by staff?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
I've expressed my opinion on this before, and so it's not going to be a surprise to you, but I just want to make sure and get it out there because we're looking at it new and everything. And I have no objection to approving a variance to have an accessory dwelling unit on this property. I understand the reasoning of activating the street and making it more pedestrian and all that, but I really feel that a metal residential building, any kind of metal building for that matter, whether it's commercial or residential, is inappropriate on Peabody Avenue in Midtown. Peabody, yeah, this is close to the commercial corner, it is, but it's still an important street in Midtown, and I just don't believe that a metal building belongs there. And I'm happy to approve an accessory dwelling unit that is designed to fit into the area, but a metal building, I just don't think it's appropriate, and I hope we don't approve it. So that's my speech.
Other comments? Okay, I think we need to, did somebody say something?
Me.
Oh, yeah, Portia.
There is a sheet metal business right there on Peabody. It's been there. It kind of reflects back to a business that's already there when you're thinking of neighborhood context.
I think it's a restaurant.
It's a restaurant now.
Quarry moved in there.
Yeah, that's right. But it used to be a sheet metal business there. So that was only a callback to something that's in the neighborhood contextually.
Right.
Close by.
I think what we need to do is possibly, like we did on the last case, vote whether or not we want to delete number 1, condition 1. If we deleted condition 1, that would allow the metal building, basically allow what's in the site plan. If we vote not to, so a vote no, we've had complicated deals today.
I know.
If we vote no to deleting condition 1, then condition 1 stays in. And then it says, yeah, you can do your 80, it just needs to be, made out of wood, brick, whatever. So I'd like we'd have to reopen it for him to do that, but if we have 5 people to do that.
After, we know what, is it paint? I feel like we went into this 2 months ago.
Yeah, I mean, so it's just showing standing seam metal. Go here.
I mean, I'm fine. I mean, I think we can get 5 people to answer that question. Like, do we have 5 that would be willing to hear the answer from the applicant of whether or not the metal is going to be painted?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, you can answer. Thank you, Mr. Walker. Thank you for waiting patiently as well.
We would be using a pre-finished metal, and it would be like a Kyner finish, so it's, would have like a 30 or 50-year warranty on it. We're looking at a white color. So, if I could just add another comment about materiality. I agree with what Ms. Scurlock said about the metal. You can look at context a lot of different ways. And, we're not in a district like Central Gardens, but even if we were, at one time, houses were built out of brick in Central Gardens. And at some point, someone said, hey, let's do a stone house. And then someone said, hey, let's do a shingle house out of wood shingles. That you could say, well, that's like they do in Maine, in that part of the country. And then they did wood. And then we're doing hardy a lot now. So we see metal on roofs. We all look at it on rooftops. And even in this area, there are plenty of houses that have metal roofs. And people think, well, that's nice. That's a very nice thing. It's something easy to maintain. And so I think it's a matter of keeping up with the times is the way I look at the way we're approaching context here. I think we're also looking at a material that we don't have to worry about maintenance. And I think sometimes when we get caught up in certain materials, we don't think about how they weather. And we know that we can drive through many districts in our city and see that houses are hard to keep up over time because they weather. This won't happen with metal. So I would just propose that a metal roof is probably something that people would generally look at in a positive fashion. So why would it be different on the siding? Thank you.
Okay. Unless there's another question of the applicant.
No, go ahead. I'm just trying to be clear too. Now, are we only talking about the metal roof, the cladding and all of that is not metal, is that correct?
Yeah, the whole thing.
Everything.
The whole thing,
okay.
yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Go ahead, Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I would agree with that way of looking at things if it wasn't for the fact that we're dealing with a fully developed neighborhood. This is not a neighborhood that's, just starting to develop and different people choose different materials and it develops into a character overall. This is a fully developed neighborhood. And to me, it just should happen that if someone wants to come in there with a new development, new building, especially if they're asking for numerous variances to get it in there, they should build a building that conforms, that fits in with the other properties in the neighborhood. And I want to say one other thing about this because it's just been on my mind since we've been looking at all of this stuff, that what it seems to me I see happening here, and I'm aware of it. I live in Idlewild, okay, which is where a couple of these things have come up on this agenda today. It seems like the neighborhoods in Midtown that are highly organized, and those are the ones usually that are also historic districts, they can fend this stuff off better because they're organized and because they have that extra layer of protection from landmarks. Idlewild doesn't have it, Lenox doesn't have it. There are several neighborhoods that don't. But I just want to make sure, and I want to put it in everybody's mind, that it wouldn't be fair for those neighborhoods to get the metal buildings and the, oversized accessory dwelling units and so on, just because they're not organized and they're not a local historic district and so on. So anyway, I'm all for an accessory dwelling unit. I have no problem with it. I don't think a metal building, complete metal building, is the right thing for Peabody Avenue in Midtown.
Could I?
We're still in discussion, so yeah, you can go back. Okay. So, yeah.
Well, first, as far as a fully developed neighborhood, I would argue that what is a fully developed neighborhood? Grace St. Luke's School just built a building, at least in the last 12 years or so, and it has a full metal roof on it just down the street. So it's on Peabody. So we're on Peabody, and these aren't all houses like in the neighborhoods that are protected by landmarks. And I think the areas that are protected by landmarks, it's a different situation. They're under those governances because of a reason. Here, we're in a commercial district, we're facing a commercial district, and that's different. So I would only argue in regard to materials, if we made this all out of wood, for example, and it were all painted white, how much different does it really look? I mean, I just don't see it as something that would be that much different in its look, but what we get out of this is long-term maintenance. And I think that's important. But also, I think, again, just the idea of this material changing the idea of what is compatible, because I think what's compatible, and Mary, you and I have worked together a long time on different things, and I think you probably understand my take, and vice versa. But I think this word compatible, unless it's defined that says you can't use something for a certain reason, then that's one thing. But then it becomes a very subjective conversation that any of us can sort of argue to agree, to disagree. So anyway, that's my take.
Okay, are we?
Mr. Chairman, I was looking back at the elevations and all, and I know everything seems to be standing seam metal. And that doesn't, I kind of agree with Ms. Baker as far as the siding. I know they have metal siding that looks more like traditional, siding and things like that. But it's tough. I don't think I could go along with the standing seam metal. And I know on the roofs, in fact, I was talking to a metal manufacturer last week, and they showed me some metal roofs that really I couldn't tell the difference between the architectural roofing that you have, asphalt, and the others. So they look good, but not standing seam. I would have a problem with the standing seam, on the side, cladding and all that.
Okay. As a point of order, we're closing discussion. Not our discussion, we're closing applicant discussion and back in our discussion, just so we know where we are. Yeah, I'm torn on it. I don't necessarily like it, but I don't want to do things. One question I have is the use of the metal itself, would that be allowed some places? If he was not getting a variance, could he do a standing seam metal structure? I know we don't have metal buildings, but this is a building that's clad in metal as opposed to, a workshop.
Well, I think the answer to that would be when we look at, and we've had some of these that are true metal buildings.
Sure.
That, say are pre-manufactured metal buildings.
Right.
And when they're behind a principal structure that is, that's a back house essentially, we do require them to come and get a variance. So, that is the way we typically handle those. This is an ADU that's actually facing a street, so.
Yeah.
But that is the way we typically handle when we say metal.
That's a metal building as opposed to a metal clad building.
Right.
And so is can you use metal siding by right?
It's not.
It's not prohibited?
Prohibited,
Okay.
Correct. It's just the compatibility that.
Yeah. Because we are where we are on the variance is why it's.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Tough one. We've lost a lot of, character in Memphis from where we decided to do something different than what was there. But new's not bad. Different's not bad. It's just different. So I don't have any other comments, and that didn't help. That was not helpful for anyone. So right now, just so we'll retrace our steps. The motion that is on the floor, I think the motion that, I don't know if we've ever made the motion, but the motion would be a procedural one to delete condition number 1 from those given to us by staff. And so a vote yes would it would get rid of the condition, and that would allow a metal building or metal-clad building. And a vote no would be we're wanting more contextual materials and stuff like that. So that's what I think we're voting on. And is there any discussion of that any more discussion of that aspect?
No keeps the condition in there.
No keeps the condition
Okay.
in, yes.
And Mr. Chairman, I may be mistaken, but I don't know that we got that actual amendment seconded and approved.
Yeah, we know, we do still need a second and a motion, so that we do need to actually make the motion. So somebody could make the motion to delete condition 1.
I move we delete condition 1
Okay.
from this application.
So Baker-
The conditions.
Claybrook just seconded that. And is there any further discussion on that? So Mr. Ragsdale, will you give us a roll call vote, please, on deleting condition 1?
Yes, sir. Ms. Scurlock?
Yes.
Mr. Claybrook?
Yes.
Ms. Baker?
No.
Tolles?
No.
Vice Chair Savage Towns?
Yes.
Chair Rainey?
I would vote yes, but it's moot due to lack of votes on that. So that motion fails, so condition 1 is still in our original motion. Is there any discussion of the original motion to approve with all the conditions as given to us by staff? Seeing none, I assume you're ready to vote. Mr. Rangsdale, if you have a roll call vote on that, please.
All right. Mr. Claybrook?
Yes.
Ms. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Tolles? Yes. Ms. Scurlock?
Yes.
Vice Chair Savage Towns?
Yes, I find the standards of the UDC of 9.22.6 are being met and will not be unduly detrimental to the properties in the vicinity.
Chair Rainey?
Yes. All right, you've been approved with condition by staff.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walker.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Ragsdale, will you call the next case for us?
Item number 14, BOA 22-153, 5121 Lamar Avenue.
Okay, I see the applicant is with us. We're gonna have to just hold it, I guess. Okay. Okay. Is there any opposition present for this case? None? Okay. Mr. Davis, can you give us a staff report, please?
Absolutely. Brett Davis with DPD, case BOA 22-153. This is a correspondence case to a variance approved by the board in 2018 concerning a non-conforming billboard. The location is 5121 Lamar Avenue. The property is owned by Duff Real Estate, LLC. That company is the applicant along with Lamar Advertising Company, which has a lease on a part of the property associated with a billboard, represented respectively by Ms. Reeves and Ms. Baser. The request is a modification to condition 6, which we'll get into a little bit more, to allow the existing billboard to remain despite a change in principal use of the site, a change in the other principal use of the site besides the billboard. So we would consider this site to have 2 principal uses. The current conditions and the zoning code would require the removal of the billboard. The area of the lot is 12 acres and it is mostly zoned employment, although there is floodway zoning through the rear. This property is in Capeville on Lamar, seen here. Here is a somewhat out-of-date satellite photo. This shows the previous use of the lot as a drop yard for trailer storage associated with the lot to the south. You see that this lot has 2 frontages on Lamar. So it has this frontage here, and then it comes around over here, and this pink dot is where the billboard is. And then the floodway runs along the rear of the property. Like I said, this site was originally a drop yard, and it has since been developed as a tire sales facility for tractor units. Here's the land use map. So this is a very industrial area. And here is a photograph of the billboard. It is one-sided only. Lamar we see to the right. And here is a survey of the property showing the site as it's been developed. So there's now a parking lot and a structure for the servicing of tractor units, as well as the sale of tires. And up here, we see the location of the billboard. The billboard is very close to the property line, and that's another issue we'll discuss in a little bit. So what was the variance in 2018 about? The state was widening Lamar and wanted some right-of-way, some additional right-of-way. The right-of-way taken included the land that the billboard was on. This billboard was a legal non-conforming billboard, meaning that it was built legally, but was no longer in conformance with our zoning standards. Why? For several reasons. The most important being that it's not along a U.S. interstate highway as required, and this highway is not becoming an interstate highway anytime soon. Also, billboards are not allowed to share a lot with another principal use, et cetera, et cetera. The board did find that there was a hardship associated with the expansion, so approved this variance to allow the relocation of the billboard. Generally, that would not be allowed. Anytime you remove it, you can't rebuild it, you can't relocate it to another part on the lot. But the expansion, the seizure of that land was considered a hardship, and a variance was approved for the new spot. The conditions here and the conditions in question are really just a reiteration of the underlying zoning standards. Basically, the board was saying, we're approving this variance, but we're not fully legitimizing the billboard. We still want it to be considered a legal non-conforming billboard. And so there's certain things in the code that would trigger its required removal, one of which, again, reiterated by condition 6, what we're talking about today, is a change in the other principal use of the site, and that's happened. We've issued a temporary certificate of occupancy for the tire business to allow it to operate, despite this compliance issue, but we do feel that this condition and reiteration of the underlying standards do require the removal of the billboard. And that requirement is a requirement for all signs, actually, not just billboards. But anytime there's a change in use of a site, change in principal use of a site, all non-conforming signs are supposed to be removed, although we're sometimes a little spotty on enforcing that. Here is the site plan approved in 2018, which will bring me to the second compliance issue, which is the setback. So again, this is a reiteration of underlying standards. Any part of the billboard is required to be at least 20 feet off the property line. And the approved site plan in 2018, we see this is where the billboard had been located, and this blue is the updated property line, and this is where it was approved to be located. It doesn't appear to have been built that way. Again, the survey shows it within 20 feet of the property line. So we don't think it was built as approved. So, in conclusion, the request is a modification to condition 6 to allow the billboard to remain despite a change in the other principal use of the site. The variance was approved to allow the relocation given the widening of Lamar right-of-way, but the board clarified, let's consider this still a legal non-conforming sign. The change in use has occurred from drop yard to tire sales, and we feel that the findings in 2018, number 4, don't apply in this case because the change in use standard has no relationship to the hardship caused by the widening of Lamar. And a new set of variance criteria to justify this request on its own merit as a separate variance. There were no responses submitted, and we don't feel that there is a hardship there. The billboard is likely in violation of condition 2, again, a reiteration of underlying setback standards. So at the bottom, number 6, if approved, we are recommending a sunset provision tied to the duration of this billboard's 10-year lease, which is set to expire on August 1st, 2027. The condition adds 2 months to the end of the lease to provide more time for removal. And also, if the board opts to approve this case, please consider what you'd like to do about the setback issue. Do you grant an additional setback variance, or do you require the removal and relocation of the billboard to meet the approved site plan, which, as conditioned in 2018, all of the parts of the billboard are required to remain the same, so it doesn't extend the life of the billboard. So we are recommending rejection with that sunset provision and requiring that all the other unmodified conditions remain in effect. And this doesn't really address that setback if you do decide to approve it, so that's just something to discuss. Thank you.
All right, any questions of staff? All right, seeing none, we'll hear from the applicant. Ms. Baser, if you'll give your name and address for the record, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brenda Salamito Baser, Salamito Land Planning, 1779 Kirby Parkway, Memphis.
Okay, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, go ahead and share with us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, this is a request for the deletion of condition number 6 from our 2018 approval. The request in 2018, which was approved by this board on consent agenda, was to allow the relocation of the existing sign as a result of the T-dot widening. So, but for T-dot's widening, this board would be in place today. It was relocated. It was approved by Shelby County Construction Code Enforcement, permitted, and I can't speak to any setback infractions because that was not our survey. So I can't speak to and I don't know if it was signed and sealed, but I can't speak to whoever illustrated that board on that site. The other issue here is that Lamar, who is present with me here today, is not aware that Duff Real Estate had filed for a building permit on this site, that they had begun construction, and were to the point where they were wanting a final inspection and it was rejected. They had been issued a temporary, so we had no idea. The other thing, the life of the board was not extended as a result of the previous Board of Adjustment case. It was simply just moved. We've agreed to a sunset for this board. We have existing advertising agreements with the state of Tennessee on this board that they are contractually obligated to that expire on the sunset, which is August 1st of 2027. It's in the lease. We've submitted the lease with full disclosure about what the anticipated life of the billboard would be. And we have agreed to a sunset. There's an exact same case just south of here. Ms. Reeves was very gracious in sharing her experience, which was a 2017 Board of Adjustment case, 2017-30, where as a result of the widening of Lamar, her owner's billboard was allowed to be relocated without conditions, other than the standard Board of Adjustment conditions. There were no other significant impositions placed on that billboard. So the precedent was set a year before for the allowing of the billboard to be moved without a condition of site plans. When the UDC was modified to allow billboards to become principal structures, it gave them the weight of a building. This billboard is an asset. It is owned by my clients, Lamar, with contractual agreements with various entities. So we feel it is an act of good faith that my clients are agreeing to this sunset. They're foregoing a 10-year renewal period. There was a renewal period to 2037, but they're agreeing to 2027. And again, the exact same situation just south of us where it was approved. So we happy to answer any questions that you may have, but we respectfully request that you remove condition number 6 and allow the sign to say a legal nonconforming as constructed. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Ms. Baser? Yes.
At the end of the sunset, is your client, they're planning on taking the billboard down?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
And I think there is a condition in the staff report, if approved, that it would be October.
Gotcha.
So that would give them 90 days to remove, and we're perfectly in agreement.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. Ms. Reeves, were you wanting to speak at all, or is that? No. Okay. Is there any opposition present to this case?
I don't know.
Surprisingly, no. Yeah, we don't always get a lot of opposition on the billboard cases. So, Ms. Bays, I do have some questions for you. So your argument is, just so I can it got approved the first time because the board was like, well, the city or state has taken this thing. We've taken something, a vested right of some sort. We'll let them move back.
Right.
And your argument is now that we're still, let me ask you this, would you argue that had we never done that case, if it was allowed like it was, the change in use would not have triggered anything?
Correct, but for the widening of TDOT. And also, there were 2 principal uses on the property. It's a very oddly shaped property. Can you put the aerial photograph back up, please? I mean, you can see the oddly shaped property and very rough terrain around where the board is located, so it's likely not developable at all. But for the TDOT widening. And I think that's why not just this one, the one to the south was also approved without a sunset. So we are agreeing to the sunset here at this location, understanding this is not an interstate, and it is, we're acknowledging legal non-conforming use.
One point of clarification, if I may. If the widening hadn't happened, this were a legal non-conforming billboard without any variance, the change in use would trigger the removal requirement under the UDC standards, even without the BOA condition being there.
So there was a use on the property before, and we've had this discussion. It was a drop lot. It was an industrial use. And that use change of site plan, it's still a heavy commercial and industrial use with the Southern Tire Mart. It is still 2 principal uses on one lot, which is permitted under the UDC in this zoning district.
Okay, Ms. Baker.
I think what I hear you saying is that you don't regard this as a change of use because you think it's in the same category. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it could be looked at that way. That's one way to look at it.
I thought that's what you were saying.
Yeah, a high intensity, heavy industrial use. There were 2 principal uses on the site in 2018 when the board originally approved this. It's a change of site plan. Granted, that's obvious, but it's still in the same classification of use.
I'd like the staff to comment on that.
So we have the use table in section 2.5.2 in the Unified Development Code, which has a list of lots of different types of principal uses. So the way we've categorized the former use and the current use, the former use is drop yard, which is considered a distribution use, so allowed in light industrial districts like this one. Now it's considered tire sales, including wholesale tire sales, as well as vehicle service. And in addition to the list of principal uses, we also categorize those uses. So the former is in the industrial category, and then the latter is in the commercial category. So we did consider it a change in use.
Other questions? Okay, if there's no other comments, I assume y'all are ready to discuss. If we can get a motion to approve BOA 22-153 as conditioned by staff.
So moved.
Okay. Question, comments?
I have a comment. I'm not sure in voting, a yes vote would approve this the way it is with the rejection of the item 6.
Yeah, so let's look real quick at our
modification to condition 6 to allow the existing billboard to remain despite a change in the principle of use. So a yes vote will allow them to.
A yes vote would allow it to stay.
Okay.
Yet, the more important change in allowing that, or what they would say we've agreed to, we can only have it for 10 years though. Gives them time to finish out their current contracts and things like that they have with the billboard.
Okay.
So we are adding a 10-year sunset to it.
And actually, Mr. Chairman, it's 5 years.
Oh, I'm sorry, 5 years, sorry. 5, sorry about that. I was thinking it's 2017 again. I knew the date.
Mr. Chairman, I do have some comments on this. I see this differently from the original vote that the board made on this, and because it was really something outside of the control of the property. And the state came along and widened the right-of-way, and so it made them have to move the billboard. I hope I'm understanding this right. I may not be. But this is within the control of the property owner, that they're changing it to another use. So I think that's different and not as compelling. Now, I hear the information about contracts that have been agreed to and all of that. And I'm not sure what to think about that. But my inclination is always to try to get these big signs off of our public streets. You know that. But I would say this, that if the board agrees to approve this, I would hope that you would at least say in the conditions that this 5 years cannot be extended. They can't come back and make another request to extend it further.
We would agree to that. We would agree to that there'll be no extensions past the sunset 2017. That's fine.
Chairman, I've got a comment.
Yes.
So the way I look at this is Duff Real Estate owns this property. They leased and or sold the frontage. I can't tell. It looks like they still own it. They could be Southern Tire Mart as far as I know. I don't know the details on that. The billboard company leases their spot. They then lease it out to the state of Tennessee, all their vendors that advertise there. Duff Real Estate could have done something without alerting them that the use was going to change. It would be one thing if Lamar owned the property and changed the use and then in return, activated that switch of change of use. Now billboard has to come down, but they are just a tenant on the property. And I feel like we've talked about these until we're, numb in the face that they're a lessor. I think we had one on Mount Moriah where Enterprise was there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And they're a tenant on the property. And, most of the times we ask for a sunset and say, when this lease is over, we want it gone. and that's generally what we agree on. So I'm kind of inclined to give them some leniency here from, our standard ruling.
Yeah, I think I'm there with you. Like, and I totally understand what you're saying. Like, anytime we get a bite of the apple, we like to take a bite of the apple on billboards. We just do. And I think we're more aggressive on that than we were in 2017 and 2018 as well on some of our recent decisions. We talk sometimes about precedent, but the good thing about our board is we don't care. At the same time, because every property is unique, and we kind of have the ability to do what we want to do on that. But there was one across the street that didn't have the same change in use thing and stuff like that. So it's a little, I get it. So I think the 5-year doesn't sound too bad, especially where it is on Lamar. It's not like it's right next to residential or anything like that. So I would vote in favor of it. We haven't put the motion on there, but I think, have we? So I would suggest, per Mary's request, that we have a friendly amendment to add that how would we say that, Mr. Ragsdale, to?
We could see condition number.
Unextendable?
The billboard shall be removed no later than August 1st, 2027, and
October, correct.
And cannot be extended beyond
cannot be extended beyond that point. Yeah.
Additional.
Okay.
I have one more question, though,
go for it.
about this. And Mr. Claybrooks, what he said made me think of it. Is this a lease issue between the property owner and the sign owner? Maybe we shouldn't even necessarily be even considering what contracts they have and so on, because that may be more of a lease disagreement between the owner of the property and the owner of the sign.
Yeah, to answer that, and I remember this distinctly because Mr. Jackson was grilling the Enterprise people. We made them come back, and they had their legal department approach, I don't know if it was Lamar, Turner, whoever it was, and I think we made them tell us what it was going to cost for them to make that billboard go away, and it was in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so we then decided on the Enterprise side and said, okay, we're going to put a sunset on it. You can't extend it.
And we're fortunate to be in the position that it's only 5 years. There's only 5 years where it is built into the lease. That is a option to renew. So it's just 5 years.
I think the lease is a consideration, but I don't consider it as much here as in the Enterprise case, just based on how it got to this point with a widening and the billboard across the street had the exact same habit. It wasn't in this spot and stuff like that. It seemed like we're somewhat this isn't entirely the applicant's fault, where some of the other billboard stuff is like, yeah, just don't use it for anything else. But like they already had rights to do what they were doing until the state started messing with them. So that's why I would not be as concerned about the lease on this one as I would on any other one, where I think that's a very valid thing for us to ask. Like, well, what's it going to cost to get rid of this? Like we've asked. So, any other questions or comments before we vote? All right. Hearing none, Mr. Rags, will you give us a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Ms. Scurlock?
Yes.
Mr. Claybrook?
Yes.
Ms. Baker?
No.
Mr. Tolles?
Yes.
Vice Chair Savage Towns?
Yes, I find that the standards of the UDC of 9.22.6 are being met and will not be unduly detrimental to the properties in the vicinity.
Chair Rainey?
Yes. All right, the motion passes. Thank y'all. Now, real quick, if we could get, because I never saw anybody show up, a motion to hold BOA 22-149.
So moved.
For a second. Second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Okay, so we've held case number 10 till next month. And then Mr. Ragsdale, agenda item, are we at 18 now?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
I believe we can close the public hearing and do the training.
Yes, so go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Yeah, so if no further announcement, this meeting's hereby adjourned.